And then it was discovered, thanks to the wonderful feminist that Blake Lively is. To people that are wondering in the comments if you should feel bad because she looks anxious, the answer is no, you shouldn't feel bad, and she should be anxious, okay?
Blake Lively is freaking out after Candace Owens just obliterated her entire victim act and exposed every pathetic move she pulled.
And this was really, truly just high school bullying done to the Hollywood extreme.
Candace didn't hold back, tearing apart Lively's manipulations, media bribery, and desperate attempts to ruin Baldoni.
She was a massive bitch.
She even said Blake can't be forgiven for the sheer level of deceit she orchestrated.
Think about how Justin Baldoni felt when he was in that basement at his own movie premiere. And they were laughing and dancing upstairs, thinking that they had almost done it.
Blake Lively is in full-blown crisis mode, and honestly, it is hilarious to watch. Candace Owens just obliterated her. This is what happens when you try to play the victim while pulling dirty moves behind the scenes. Eventually, someone with actual intelligence like Candace will call you out, and you won't have a PR team big enough to clean up the mess. And let's be real, Blake thought she was untouchable. She thought she could just pull some feminist buzzwords out of thin air, manipulate the media, and walk away looking like a hero. Nope, not today, not on Candace's watch, and definitely not after this epic public humiliation.
The task is not on the people who caught you doing that thing to extend forgiveness to you when you have not asked for forgiveness. That is the important part here, okay?
This is the problem with Hollywood elites like Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. They live in this bubble where they think their fans are idiots. Blake wanted everyone to believe she was just a sweet little actress fighting against a big bad man. But Candace just ripped the mask off and exposed the real Blake. A conniving, hypocritical, PR-obsessed manipulator who thought she could weaponize the media.
When you recapture that in your own imagination, recapture how Justin Baldoni and his family must have felt realizing that if it wasn't for us meddling kids, okay? If it wasn't for us meddling kids, he would have effectively been branded as a sexual pervert. That would have been the story of Justin Baldoni.
The internet is on fire right now because this isn't just a small takedown. This is a full-scale exposure of how celebrities play the victim while controlling the narrative behind closed doors. And Blake? She has no response. She's probably throwing things across the room, screaming at Ryan to call TMZ, while Candace just sits back and laughs. But let's talk about the fakest part of this entire situation, Blake's victim narrative. Oh, it is so bad it's actually funny. Candace called it out instantly. This woman went from Hollywood darling to suddenly claiming she was oppressed by the industry. And not only did the media eat it up, but she had the audacity to push this narrative while actively trying to destroy Justin Baldoni's career.
This was meant to be an act of evil against a harmless person. She sensed his weakness and she went for it. And yes, I too would be anxious and uncomfortable if the world finally saw me for exactly what I was.
You can't have it both ways, Blake. You can't pretend to be this poor, helpless victim while at the same time working behind the scenes with PR teams to smear your opponent. Candace pulled the receipts. Blake's own team was feeding TMZ, People Magazine, and Variety with a pre-planned scripted sob story. And let's talk about the wild contradictions in her statements because Candace tore that apart like a forensic detective. Blake swore up and down in December 2024 that Justin Baldoni was a monster and that she had been suffering for years. Then, when February 2025 rolled around, suddenly her own legal filings started contradicting her earlier claims.
I don't forgive it, I will not forget it, but when she comes down and asks for an apology, then we can revisit that question.
Candace pointed it out so effortlessly. Blake's timeline makes no sense. If she had real evidence, why did she have to keep changing her story to fit the media's reaction? The answer is obvious. There was no real case. It was one giant PR stunt designed to get media sympathy while crippling Baldoni professionally. Candace wasn't buying the nonsense for even a second, and neither should anyone with a functioning brain.
Who was into a category of porn that nobody has ever heard of, which is a woman giving birth. realized that they sat down, they made threats in an effort to take over his movie. And when they didn't get what they wanted, they were willing to brand him as a sexual predator via one of the most powerful news organizations in the world.
Now, the best part of Candace's takedown, she exposed how Blake Lively is the definition of a fake feminist. Oh, Blake loves to scream about women's empowerment, but only when it benefits her. She was one of the loudest voices during the #MeToo movement, acting like she cared about holding powerful figures accountable.
Thanks to the wonderful feminist that Blake Lively is.
Fast forward to 2025, and she's literally using the same media tactics to ruin a man's reputation without due process. So, what happened to all those "we need to believe in justice" speeches, Blake? Did those suddenly become inconvenient now that you're the one pushing lies? Candace mocked this so brutally, and rightly so. Blake is the kind of person who cries about Hollywood being corrupt while using the exact corruption she pretends to fight against.
We do know is that there has definitively been a noticeable transition in Blake Lively's public demeanor, right? We're kind of used to seeing, and pardon my language here, but we're very used to seeing like a bitchy Blake, right? She's very unkind to reporters, and genuinely I think that there's just a lack of a better word there.
And here's where it gets even funnier. Candace pulled out Blake's own words from 2018, where she trashed Hollywood's manipulation. Blake literally gave interviews talking about how PR teams spin narratives to protect big-name celebrities. She used to go on and on about how people in the industry use their power to twist the truth. And now she's doing the exact same thing, but expects people to believe she's different? Candace exposed it all, and the irony is so rich it should be illegal. You can't stand for justice when it's convenient, and then manipulate the media when you're the one facing scrutiny.
She seems to hate the press junkets over the years. She barely seems to enjoy her fans. She kind of thinks that she's above her fans, thinks she's above the press.
And let's not forget the backlash from actual feminist groups. They don't want to be associated with Blake anymore. That's how bad this has gotten. Candace pointed out that some feminist organizations are starting to quietly distance themselves because they can see the writing on the wall. Supporting Blake in this case is a guaranteed PR disaster. Nobody wants to back a celebrity who got caught weaponizing feminism for personal gain. This isn't about justice, it's about power and revenge. And Candace didn't let her get away with it.
Question is, have they asked for forgiveness? And Blake Lively has not. She has not said sorry. She has not even said sorry to the court. She has not dropped the lawsuit. She has not made a statement. She has not apologized to anyone for attempting to execute an act of perfect evil.
And this next part was the ultimate mic drop moment. Candace directly compared Blake's media strategy to Amber Heard's. Oh, you know that one hurt. Candace pulled up every similarity. The PR manipulation, the fake feminist rhetoric, the victim playing, the contradictions, the shifting narratives, and the ultimate public exposure. The parallels are so obvious, it's shocking more people didn't call it out sooner. And let's be real, we all saw how that ended for Amber Heard. Candace flat out said what everyone was thinking. Blake is running the same playbook, and it's about to blow up in her face just like it did for Amber.
I believe truly it is not an act to suggest that Blake Lively is anxious at this moment in time with so much on the line and everything that she feels that she's worked for.
This is what happens when celebrities think they're untouchable. Blake really thought she could use social justice movements as a shield to avoid accountability, but Candace wasn't having it. She ripped apart every single lie, every fake claim, and every attempt to twist the narrative. And now, Blake Lively is spiraling. There is nothing left of her credibility except a pile of contradictions and a public image that's falling apart in real time. And she has no one to blame but herself.
Because people are just not going to watch a movie with Blake Lively in it.
Ryan Reynolds, Mr. I'm just a funny guy who stays out of drama, just got completely exposed for being knee-deep in his wife's legal mess. And Candace tore him apart for it. This man really thought he could play the background character while secretly pulling strings behind the scenes, and now he's getting dragged right into the fire with Blake. Candace came with receipts, and let's just say, Ryan's good guy image is now officially in shambles.
We just showed you where he brought his mom in, to mock Justin Baldoni and to make fun of him and his background and his family and ayahuasca, Blake Lively was present when that was shot.
So what did Candace find? Oh, just some little text messages from July 2024 that show Reynolds literally contacting Sony executives, trying to pressure them into dropping Baldoni. Let's just take a moment to process this. Ryan Reynolds,
People don't like Ryan Reynolds especially.
the same guy who acts like he's too busy making quirky tweets and promoting his gin, was out here directly interfering in a legal battle because his wife's fake victim narrative wasn't working fast enough. And Candace did not hold back. She mocked the absolute hell out of him for thinking he could meddle behind the scenes and not get caught. And the best part? Reynolds was completely silent when Blake first made these accusations. He was out here acting like he had nothing to do with it, letting her play the helpless woman while he sat back and watched. But the second their brand started taking a hit, the second people started questioning Lively's story, boom, Ryan Reynolds suddenly gets involved.
And I said that immediately when she was on the red carpet with Ryan. He didn't, obviously, because he is, I think, just a narcissist to his core. But, they chose to walk the red carpet and he was kind of pointing at her.
Candace straight up laughed at how predictable it was. This is Hollywood's power couple privilege at its finest. Ryan and Blake actually thought their names alone would make people believe whatever they wanted. The idea that they could literally manipulate entire studios and executives just because they're rich and famous is beyond disgusting. And now, fans are turning on him too. People are seeing right through his act, and the internet isn't buying his innocent, goofy husband routine anymore. He played himself.
When you zoomed in on her face in that moment and you saw Kevin Costner kind of looking down in that SNL moment, she doesn't look comfortable. She doesn't. She looks anxious. She looks like she doesn't really want to be out in public when she knows that the public does not like her.
And speaking of pathetic PR moves, let's talk about Blake Lively's absolute train wreck of a media strategy. Because Candace roasted it so badly, I'm surprised Lively hasn't packed her bags and fled the country yet. Blake's PR team should honestly be sued for malpractice because not a single move they've made has worked. Candace ripped them apart, and honestly, it's just embarrassing at this point.
Regarding Blake Lively, until the person at least asks for it. Also, you don't need to do drugs, accept Jesus and God.
First up, Lively's emotional statement in March 2025. Oh wow, a teary-eyed scripted monologue where she clutches her chest and talks about how traumatized she is. Candace called it Oscar-worthy acting, and honestly, she wasn't wrong. You could practically see the PR team feeding her lines off camera. Candace mocked every second of it, pointing out how convenient it was that Blake only starts crying when the public stops believing her. Where were the waterworks in December 2024 when she first made the allegations? Nowhere. But suddenly, when people start asking questions, she's sobbing in front of a camera. Candace called it performative nonsense, and she was 100% right.
At the event for South by Southwest, some people are noticing that she's rambling when she's speaking on stage to the point of almost incoherency, rambling to deal with her angst, right?
Then there was Blake's desperate attempt to smear Baldoni through the media, which backfired spectacularly. Candace laughed at how multiple major outlets, including Daily Mail and the New York Post, fact-checked her claims and exposed her inconsistencies. Blake thought she could flood the internet with fake headlines and get away with it, but she didn't realize people actually check sources now. Candace shredded her for thinking the public would just blindly believe her nonsense. People actually read beyond clickbait now, Blake.
She's definitely rambling, and you can sense she's uncomfortable and a lot of hand movements, but I'll also add that even when you see her walking the red carpet, she's suddenly very nice to fans. It's a totally different Blake Lively.
And let's not forget the most ridiculous part of all. Lively's attempt to subpoena Hollywood execs who have no connection to the case. This woman was out here throwing subpoenas like confetti, trying to drag random industry people into this mess just to make herself look more powerful. Candace called it the legal equivalent of flailing around in a pool when you don't know how to swim. She was grasping at straws, hoping someone, anyone, would give her a shred of credibility, and once again, it blew up in her face. Candace mocked the sheer desperation of it all, calling it one of the weakest PR strategies she's ever seen. And she's not wrong. But wait, it gets even worse, because Blake tried to weaponize Taylor Swift And Candace Owens tore that move apart so hard, I don't think Blake will ever recover.
A very mean girl who will even use A-list power and the threat of dragons to take somebody down who just wanted to bring forth a movie that they were passionate about.
So let's go over this disaster step by step. In October 2024, Lively and Swift were seen hanging out publicly, which at the time looked like a cute bestie moment. But then Baldoni's counter lawsuit dropped just weeks later, and suddenly people started realizing, oh wait, was this all just another PR stunt? Candace called it immediately, saying Lively was trying to use Swift as her human shield. And honestly, that's exactly what happened.
And I want you to read her text messages and how horrific they were, how quickly her and Ryan decided to use the threat of Taylor Swift to take down Justin Baldoni and make him feel like he was powerless in the world of Hollywood.
And here's where it gets embarrassing. Swift didn't play along. Sources started coming out saying Lively was feeding Swift false information, trying to get her to publicly support the case, but Swift backed away. And when Candace dug into it, she found even more proof that Blake was straight up lying. Taylor Swift's own legal team had to release a statement clarifying she had no involvement. That's right. Lively dragged Swift's name into this mess without permission, and it blew up in her face.
Blake's team filed for a slightly modified type of protection order that would include increased protections to third parties. Now, we covered this filing. I told you that essentially what was buried in it was what I would describe as the Taylor Swift clause.
And now, Taylor Swift is rumored to be actively avoiding Blake Lively. Candace found this so funny because Blake thought she had the ultimate weapon, a pop star with millions of fans, but instead, she ended up getting rejected like an embarrassing high school friend who tries too hard. Blake was so sure she could manipulate Swift into defending her, but all she did was make herself look desperate. Candace called it one of the funniest backfires she's ever seen, and honestly, she's right.
If Brian Friedman subpoenas Taylor Swift's text messages, wink, wink, that's what I want, that's what I want to see, and it reveals that actually Taylor Swift was LOLing with Blake Lively about being a dragon. She was like, yeah, I'm a dragon. Rawr. And she was like plotting the takeover of the movie.
And this is why Candace's takedown was so brutal, because she exposed that Blake Lively isn't just a liar, she's a bad liar. Every single move she made was sloppy, transparent, and ridiculously easy to see through. Candace mocked the sheer incompetence of it all, pointing out that if Lively actually had a real case, she wouldn't have needed all these ridiculous PR stunts in the first place. The fact that she had to rely on fake headlines, forced public sympathy, and Taylor Swift's name just proves how weak her case actually is. And now, Blake Lively has no allies left. Her PR team has failed, Ryan Reynolds is now exposed for being part of the smear campaign, the media isn't protecting her anymore, and Taylor Swift wants nothing to do with her. Candace tore through all of it like a wrecking ball, and Blake is left standing in the ruins of her own failed manipulation.
I want the Taylor Swift text messages. I deserve the Taylor Swift text messages. Okay, I've worked incredibly hard for the Taylor Swift text messages. Years, okay? Maybe not years, but like everyone can see that I have made a real effort.
Blake Lively thought she could manipulate the media, twist Hollywood's arm, and come out looking like a hero, but the leaked audio from Ari Emanuel just blew up her entire operation. Candace Owens dragged this mess into the sunlight, and let's just say, Lively's shady tactics have been exposed in the most humiliating way possible. This isn't some vague rumor or a PR-crafted narrative. This is cold, hard evidence from one of Hollywood's most powerful agents, confirming exactly what we suspected all along. Blake Lively's entire case is built on lies, corruption, and behind-the-scenes media manipulation.
So let me clarify, I have never spoken to Brian Friedman in my life, and it hurts me deeply. As I said to you guys, like he and I are connected in the stars or something, like, you know, he might be my brother from another mother.
So what did the February 2025 secret recording reveal? Oh, just that Lively's team was literally bribing journalists to paint Baldoni as dangerous. That's right, actual bribes were happening behind closed doors, all to create a fake public narrative that made Lively look like a saint and Baldoni look like a monster. Candace did not hold back in pointing out how this is the lowest, most desperate move imaginable. If Blake actually had real evidence, why would she need to pay off the press to push her story?
okay, not years, but like everyone can see that I have made a real effort. And now that you have name checked me and I'm under your skin, I'm going to be there for a very long time. I'm not going to let go. I'm like a pit bull, okay? I'm on to you.
And it gets even worse. The leaked audio also confirmed that Hollywood execs were being threatened if they didn't support Lively's case. Let that sink in. Threats were allegedly being made to powerful people in the industry just to force them into backing Blake's version of events. Candace ripped into the sheer arrogance of it all. Blake actually believed she could bully Hollywood into submission, forcing them to take her side whether they believed her or not. This isn't justice. This is straight-up mafia-style intimidation, and the fact that she thought she could get away with it shows just how delusional she is.
Because that's what she has told people in interviews. She's opened up about the fact that she struggles for equality, all of the struggles that she faces on behalf of trying to stand up as a woman.
And the final, most humiliating revelation? Blake's own lawyers admitted in private that they had weak evidence and were solely relying on public pressure to win the case. Let's just take a moment to appreciate how utterly pathetic that is. Candace laughed at how Blake spent months screaming about justice and the truth, only for it to be exposed that her entire case was nothing more than smoke and mirrors built on media manipulation and PR stunts. Blake didn't care about justice. She cared about destroying Baldoni's career using whatever means necessary, and now the receipts have been laid out for the world to see.
You have to distinguish between the two, what a standard court protective order is and what Blake Lively's team is asking for, which is an attorney's eyes only designation.
And guess what? Hollywood is finally seeing through the nonsense. Candace pointed out that even the most spineless industry executives, the ones who usually bow down to every celebrity sob story, aren't buying Blake's victim narrative anymore. And you know it's bad when Hollywood itself turns on you.
Even a little bit bad for her, you reap what you sow. That's correct. And now it is indeed a season of harvest for her. And again, if she apologizes, I will have a totally different perspective. But I'm going to need that apology first for my cousin.
In March 2020, major Hollywood execs started refusing to publicly support Lively. That's right. The same people who once lined up to praise her every move are now quietly walking away because they know she's a sinking ship. Candace mocked how her entire empire is collapsing in real time, and she's completely powerless to stop it.
That's my brother from another mother, and you're messing with my cousin, and I'm pregnant.
And let's talk about WME Talent Agency. You know, Blake's former representation? Yeah, they quietly distanced themselves from her too. Candace dragged the fact that even the people who were supposed to be protecting her career want nothing to do with her anymore. Hollywood agencies don't just drop A-list clients for fun. They drop them when they become a liability. And Blake Lively is now the biggest liability in Hollywood. And it's not just talent agencies backing away. Streaming platforms are hesitant to greenlight her next projects. Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, none of them want to touch her now because they know she's radioactive. Candace laughed at how Blake thought she could manipulate the industry, only to end up getting blacklisted from it. The irony writes itself.
I am under your skin. I'm so excited. I'm under their skin. Blake and Ryan are watching.
And the public? Oh, the public has completely turned against her. Candace pulled up the latest numbers, and they are brutal. In January 2025, 40% of people believed Baldoni over Lively. By March, that number shot up to 60%. That's a massive shift in just a couple of months, and it proves that Blake's PR stunts aren't working anymore. People are seeing through the act, and they aren't buying what she's selling. And social media? Oh, it's an absolute disaster for Blake right now. Candace called out the fact that Twitter, TikTok, and Reddit are all roasting her PR moves, calling her the next Amber Heard 2.0. And honestly, that comparison is spot on. Everything about this feels like a rerun of the Amber Heard disaster. The fake sob stories, the forced media narratives, the desperate attempts to paint herself as a victim, only for it all to collapse when real evidence comes out. Candace mocked how Blake must be watching this unfold in real time, realizing that she's been caught in the exact same trap that destroyed Heard's career.
We just read through this. We showed the public that's what you're doing. So I don't understand why I got name checked here. And then just to say, predictably, the media outlets picked up the same narrative. They're like, they got me out here looking like Regina George when she cuts her shirt.
And even Blake's former Hollywood allies are abandoning ship. Candace pointed out that Jenny Slate, who once publicly supported Lively, has gone completely silent. And that silence says everything. Hollywood is filled with opportunists, and the second they realize you're a lost cause, they drop you like a bad investment. Candace called out how Blake spent years thinking she had powerful friends in the industry, only to now realize that she was just another disposable actress they can toss aside when she stops being useful.
She was a massive bitch.
Candace ended this whole saga with one final, brutal reality check. Hollywood isn't buying Blake's lies anymore. The public isn't buying them, the media isn't buying them, and no matter how much money, power, and influence she throws at this mess, she can't change the truth. And that is the real reason why Blake Lively is in absolute meltdown mode. Candace made sure there's no coming back. Subscribe for more brutal truth bombs.